Peace and Light family. I'm Erica Trinell with the Nativa Party. This is for educational purposes only. I'm not legal advice, just truth and history. Let's walk through the story of how real wealth was taken from the people, turned into paper promises, and how that promise was quietly flipped so the people became the collateral. For most of America's early history, money was metal. Gold and silver weren't just symbols of wealth, they were the wealth. Paper notes were only receipts that said, "You may redeem this for gold or silver on demand." Ordinary people, Black, Native, and poor white families, used coins or property to trade because they didn't trust banks. Many melanated communities lived outside mainstream credit systems and built local economies on real value. Livestock, grain, silver pieces, and land. By the 1920s, paper institutions had grown powerful. They created credit by issuing more paper than they had metal to back it. When the stock market collapsed in 1929, the illusion broke. Banks closed and people rushed to withdraw gold they were told was theirs. The system realized it didn't have enough to pay everyone. In March 1933, the authorities of the time declared a banking holiday. Every bank in the country closed its doors. Weeks later came a sweeping order. All citizens had to turn in their gold coins, bars, and certificates to approved collection points. Those who kept gold faced a fine of up to $10,000 and 10 years in prison, a fortune back then. People lined up at banks and post offices handing over wedding rings, savings coins, and family keepsakes. In return, they received paper certificates worth $20.67 per ounce of gold. The paper said, "This note is a promise to pay the bearer on demand." That phrase is important. It was a literal promissory note from the system to the people. The official story was that centralizing gold would help restart the economy. In truth, the act transferred private wealth into federal hands. It wasn't just wealthy investors or farmers who lost metal. It was barbers, teachers, craftsmen, churches, and families who used gold and silver for everyday trade. A year later came the Gold Reserve Act of 1934. It revalued gold from $20.67 to $35 an ounce. That meant the Central Treasury instantly gained about 69% profit on the metal it had just confiscated. The people had been paid in paper, and the paper's worth was now less. That extra value became the foundation for a new credit structure. The system used the people's gold as collateral to expand paper money and finance public projects. It was marketed as helping the nation recover, but the true creditors, the people, were never repaid. Those early paper notes promised that the holder could redeem them for lawful money. But in 1944, a new international agreement tied currencies around the world to the US dollar instead of gold directly. Only foreign governments could still exchange dollars for metal. By the 1950s, the public promise had faded from every bill. The words "payable to the bearer on demand" quietly disappeared. Now the paper itself was the value. The debt was never settled. It was absorbed into a new system of credit. Through the 1960s, people still held silver certificates, which once could be redeemed for silver dollars. That ended in 1968. Then, in 1971, the top executive of the nation announced that the country would no longer exchange dollars for gold, even with foreign nations. That moment, often called the closing of the gold window, turned the dollar into a pure fiat currency. From then on, paper had value only because the system said so and because the people agreed to keep using it. Here's where the story turns. In 1933, the system owed the people. It had taken their real assets and issued promises to pay. But as the decades rolled on, credit creation expanded through fractional lending. Banks discovered they could create new money whenever someone signed a loan contract. Every signature became a new promissory note. Your promise to pay created fresh credit on the books. The same mechanism that began as a promise from the system to you was reversed. Now you issue the promise back to them. That is why today the public is the debtor class. The people's original collateral, their gold, silver, and land, fueled a machine that requires their ongoing signatures to keep running. For melanated communities, this was devastating. Before 1933, many Black farmers and entrepreneurs had small stores of gold or land that kept their families independent. When those assets were exchanged for paper, there was no path to rebuild value. Discrimination kept them from the new credit lines that larger institutions enjoyed. The loss was not just money, it was autonomy. Entire communities were pushed from self-sufficient trading into dependency on a system that they did not control. That shift echoes today in the persistent wealth gap and in the fact that many families own little tangible property compared with what their grandparents once held in their hands. After World War II, and again in the 1960s, some economists and lawmakers proposed that the nation should acknowledge the public's loss, perhaps through credits or land programs, because foreign nations were still allowed to redeem gold while the citizens who supplied it could not. Those discussions ended in 1976 when new laws formally closed all domestic claims to the old gold obligations. The ledger was declared balanced, but no repayment was ever made. Because when you look at the timeline, a pattern appears. Real wealth went out from the people in 1933. Paper promises came back in its place. Those promises were never honored in substance. The credit system built on that foundation still operates today. So when people say the system owes us, they're remembering a real exchange, the moment when the nation's economy was saved by its own citizens and their gold, silver, and property, yet the benefit was never returned to them. This is not about blame, it's about understanding how value is created and who controls it. Every dollar today is a note that represents trust. Trust that someone will honor the promise. But real value still comes from people's labor, resources, and creativity. Once we see that the system runs on our signatures and our production, we can start building new forms of exchange based on mutual trust and substance. The goal is not to fight with paperwork or fake claims. It's to educate, organize, and reestablish value where it belongs, in the hands of the people. Family, this story is not conspiracy. It's recorded economic history. Real assets were taken, paper promises were issued, and the flow of debt was reversed. Knowing that lets us see today's system for what it is, a network built on our collective credit and our ancestors' sacrifice. I'm Erica Tranel with the Nativa Party. I share truth so our people can move smart, not scared. Stay tuned for the next documentary where we break down how signatures still create value today and how knowledge can restore balance. Peace, power, and purpose.